Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. A frustrating performance, guys, from this Napoli team against an even more frustrating Torino, a club that refuses time and time again to play football. Guys, this is a club that every time you play against them, they are the definition of mid anti football, being 10th in the league. They have no ambition of a European spot. They are not scared about going down. And at this point of the season, going against a team like Torino is just such a classic 0-0 or 1-1 or whatever the case it is. It's just going to be a tough game. Having said that, that's no excuse. Napoli had something to play for. They should have came in with more motivation, with more desire. They were off the back of two wins, such a huge one against Juventus, and they failed to do that. And it's now three managers in a row that Napoli failed to get three wins in a row. And there will be a lot of discussion, guys, about Zielinski and why he's on the field, why someone like Calzona continues to invest time and effort into him, knowing that he's going to Inter. But, now that we're speaking about threes, the three wins that never come about, there's three players that I think really frustrate me a lot, regardless of Zelinski. And these are players that, in theory, have long-term future with the club, and that is Anguissa, Lobotka, and Di Lorenzo, guys, because these are supposed to be three leaders of the team, and in my opinion, they've not done enough this season. Maybe after 2, 3 seasons at the highest level, it's normal for these guys to have a bit of a moment, right? They've in the last 2, 3 years they've done Euros and Afcons, and they were integral part of the Scudetto team, and maybe it's normal that they are down a little bit with their form, but at the same time, it's been so many months that it's more than that at this point, and you really have to wonder, does Napoli or should Napoli keep relying on these three players that have been such an important part of this team, or is it time to think about what happens next season or 2 years from now with these players? Do we need to start replacing guys like Anguissa, like Lobotka from now? Let's not open that Pandora's box of Di Lorenzo because he's the captain, but only because he's the captain. But I mean, their performances have not been to their level for way too long, or if they have had some good performances like Anguissa lately, it's been 1 out of 10. And we just lack intensity, creativity, and that desire apart from our attackers. So yeah, our midfield really struggling. A few positive notes is that Kvara played an outstanding game. I think Politano was positive, especially in the first half. But we know that Politano only has 30 minutes in him, right? I mean, he has 30 good minutes, then he has 30 minutes of being completely average, then he gets subbed off, right? That's the standard with Politano. You're only gonna get 30 good minutes from him. And then I liked Ostigard and Juan Jesus. Juan Jesus was with a yellow card for the majority of the game. His first yellow was super silly in the first half, totally unnecessary, but then afterwards did well. Actually, the goal that Kvara scored starts with Juan Jesus recovering the ball quite well. Ostigard wins every single duel, shows why he's Napoli's best defender. And then, Kvara and Mairui, we know, we've been saying it for the last few weeks that they link up extremely well and that Kvara plays at his best when he can rely on Mairui. The problem is that you lose out on a few centimeters when you play Mairui, and that's also how we conceded the goal. So it's take and give with Mairui because Zapata, who gets the first flick in the corner, and contributes to the chaos of why Napoli weren't able to clear the ball, was being marked by Mairui. I mean, who decided on that? That has me scratching my head for the last hour of the marking in that corner. But yeah, guys, I mean, just frustrating with the amount of chances that we missed and just the lack of urgency. And this was a really competitive game in the sense that these are two teams that were out there even to hurt each other at some points. I mean, this was a real battle, but there was so little technical quality on display apart from Kvara. Osimhen, by the way, pocketed, absolutely pocketed by Buongiorno. I mean, what a classic Italian style center back that guy is. I mean, I don't think he's incredible. I think he can be a little bit goofy at times, even like in the first half. There was a moment where he didn't really clear the ball that well. He was about to score an own goal. He's got a bit of goofiness about him, and maybe he's lucky to come away only with a yellow card, but that's classic Italian center back right there. And to pocket someone like Osimhen when you're so young, to lead a team like Torino when you're so young, you just think that he is a center back of Italy for the future. And how different could our season have been if Napoli, when they were linked to him earlier this summer, if they really went for him? I think he could have been a great replacement for Kim, that amount of Katsima that we need, because he really showed his level against a tough, informed client like Osimhen. Guys, I'm gonna get to the comments now. I know there's a lot of you in the chat at the moment. Guys, there are almost 100 of you on here, but only 26 likes, which is very disappointing. I guess you guys don't like the show. That's what I can deduct from that, right? Unless we get those likes up, right? I mean, those likes, by the way, are for me, are not for Napoli. Anyways, speaking of people that support me all the time, regardless of the result, regardless of difference of opinions, Payman Dadgar, man, thank you once again for your support to the channel with the 4.99 donation. No urgency. Dilo, Lobo, and Zambo have been disgraceful. I also think Raspadori needs to go. I also don't want Traore. Champions League over. Look, I think Raspadori and Traore, uh, at least they've got age on their side. Raspadori, he showed in the last few games that he's, I don't want to do a stupid pun here, but he is a jack of all trades, and I think when we had Elmas in the team, then he was a little bit like too much, because they were both two jollies. But now that Elmas is gone, you need someone like Raspadori in your team that can play any position in attack. So I would keep Raspadori. Traore, eh, I think he's better than Zielinski, and with Zielinski leaving, I think at least for the time being, you've got to play Traore, right? And then for the summer, let's talk about it. We've still got a few games to evaluate him, but at least from now on, we got to play Traore. And then when it comes to the other three, Dilo, Lobo, and Zambo, I mean, they have fallen off this year. They've had some good performances here and there, but my God, they have fallen off. And you know, yeah. it's a shame. It's a shame because these are the guys that should be, the leaders of this team. But who knows? Maybe next year, you know. I think back to, for example, I don't know how often you guys watch other leagues, other clubs, but when you think of Virgil van Dijk with Liverpool, right? He had some great seasons. Then he fell off last season, maybe for a year and a half actually. And now this season he's picked up his form again, right? So are these three players going through that kind of period? I don't know. But we do have to start thinking about whether they're actually, the guys that we can rely on to be our starters next season onwards, or whether we need to start thinking about who else can come into that midfield. Vincenzo Bertillo, man, thank you for your donation, 13.99 Canadian dollars. If we only got Calzona when Roma got De Rossi, or if only we got Calzona when Roma got De Rossi, he came too late to get us a Champions League spot. Hopefully we can beat Barca. Yeah, I mean, look, De Rossi's come in and done an incredible job. I think that makes Napoli's life a lot harder. I don't think anybody expected De Rossi to do that. But there was always that untapped potential with Roma. I always feel like maybe that's an easier kind of job because you come from a club that didn't win last year, that was forced to play unattractive football, and then De Rossi is a legend of that club. So obviously he's going to have a huge motivational lift on that team. Whereas Napoli, they won last year. They have a feeling of whatever to this season, right? They don't feel like there's that that now or never kind of thing that maybe Roma has of guys like we either get get into the Champions League this year or we have to start dismembering the whole team. Like they really I think felt that it's now or never, something that Napoli never really felt this season. Um, but yeah, I mean, credit to De Rossi. And maybe if we did get Calzona earlier, we would get more points. But at the same time, with Calzona, guys, a draw against Cagliari, a draw against Torino, it's not really, you know, the it's not really the revolution that you're like, oh, yes, he is the one, Actually, I think today Calzona showed a lot of his limits, um, not only with the players that he decided to start, for example, Zielinski, right? I guess maybe to try to keep Traore fit for Barcelona, but I thought he showed his limits when it came to the substitutions, and it reminded me so much of Sarri. And if Sarri has one weakness, it's his inflexibility and the fact that Sarri only sees 14 players, you know? He doesn't like to use the full roster. And I had a feeling when Calzona first came in that Barcelona game that he was going to use the full roster because he was substituting Osimhen and he was substituting Kvara and he did all five substitutions. And I thought, wow, okay, he really, wants to send a message that he wants to use every single person on this team. But the last two games, he's not even used all five subs. This game, he used Lindstrom he put him on in the 92nd minute. And at this point of the season for Napoli, whether we draw or whether we lose, it doesn't change anything for us. Like for us right now in this point of the season, either you get a win or it doesn't matter, right? So why not just go for it with 15 minutes to go? Put Lindstrom and Simeone, change your formation, put a 4-2-4 or a 4-2-3-1 or whatever it is that you want to do, but just put more attackers up in there, right? Put Raspadori closer to Osimhen. Kvara was doing a lot of damage in that center attacking mid position. Why not have two players over there, whether that be Kvara and Raspadori or Kvara and Lindstrom, and really try to work Torino in the middle because they had the wings covered, you know? Like why not try to change things up? But it just shows that he comes from that Maurizio Sarri school of thought where it's got to be a 4-3-3. You can only rely on 12, 13 players, and God forbid you try something a little bit unorthodox. And I think that works to some extent, but I think, again, at this point of the season, where literally a win is the only thing that helps us, then you do have to change it up. You do have to change it up. And as I'm gonna get to some more comments, guys, I'm gonna go in a bit of a random order. But as Sevdan says, we are bad at crossing, never crossing the ball, always blocked. I mean, we did score from a cross today, but it was a low cross, and it wasn't a cross to, it wasn't one of those where everyone is static and the defense is already locked in. It was one that we were in transition where Kvara was making a run inside. There was a quick one too with Mayuru. Like it was a speedy action, right? It wasn't just four defenders waiting for the cross, right? But towards the end of the game, it became a situation where Torino were just parking the bus, and at that point, it's useless to cross the ball because you're never gonna win a header against them when they're parking the bus with six defenders in the box. So then why not play down the middle? And yeah, it's risky. You might turn the ball over more times, but you got to play to your strengths. And our strengths is having people play technical football, not whipping crosses in. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with the lack of flexibility that he showed. Johnny says Raspadori has been clutch. I don't know why he isn't starting along with Kvara, Politano, and Ossi. I think Raspadori has that, because he's a jack of all trades. Coaches like to keep him on the bench, and then depending on how the game is going, they see where it's best to fit him. But when you start him, it's like you've constrained him from the first minute, and then it gives you less options to change the game later on. Zeddan is saying that Elmas was better than Raspa. I think so as well. I think there's a reason why Elmas was always Spalletti's first pick, and Raspadori second. So tired of Osimhen. Bye bye World Cup, says Moment. Well, I mean, that will depend against Barcelona. By the way, Barcelona today were also playing. They were playing against Mallorca, and they scored one goal with Lamine Yamal. They won 1-0. But I'm sure it was a tough game. I mean, Mallorca 15th in La Liga. I mean, winning 1-0, not the most convincing of games, and they have some injuries that they're dealing with. So let's see how that is. I mean, I'll be there on Tuesday in person supporting the team. So let's see what happens, man. Let's see what happens. Maybe I gotta prepare like some kind of paper airplane to throw at Calzona, with some kind of instructions, about what I feel he should do. Give Kvara center attacking mid position, says Valerie, and make him a captain next season. Look, I think changing captain is always strange, right? Unless if the previous captain is still in the squad. I I think it just demotivates that ex-captain way too much, and we don't really want that from Di Lorenzo. There's also the fact that a captain is not necessarily the best player on the field, but it's also the one that really understands the city, the environment, the club, has a good relationship with the media, has a good relationship with the staff. When a new player comes in, shows them around, shows them, like, teaches him the values. And so I think you need an experienced player, or a player that has come through the youth academy of that team, that knows what that club is really about. I think a player that is still young like Kvara, that's only been at the club for 2 years, I think there's still a lot of things that he needs to learn and get used to before he can be a captain to the other players in the team. So yeah, I never saw that as being, the prerequisite for captain, being the best player. This is goodbye to the Champions League, guys. I think this is I think a if it's not a goodbye, it's when someone texts you, "Hey, we should totally," no, when you no, when you bump into someone on the street that you kind of know, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. We should totally meet up." And you say, "Yeah, totally. Text me," and then you keep walking. It's like you might meet up, but 99% of the time you won't meet up. That's our probability right now with the Champions League. Like we're like, "Yeah, we should meet up," but will we meet up with the Champions League next year? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how that analogy came into my mind. But yeah, I mean, you guys get it. The best player in Torino was Milinkovic Savic. Yeah, Irakli. I totally agree. I mean, I was joking about it earlier. Some people lie on their CVs. This guy doesn't lie. When he puts professional goalkeeper, yeah, he's a professional goalkeeper, all right. I mean, he is. I think, I think he might be the best goalkeeper in the league. We've always had a super tough time against him. Even when we won 4-0 last season, he made some good saves in that match, and it could have been 8-0 or 9-0 last season. And Torino have one of the best defenses in the league. They have the third best defense with only 26 goals conceded. Inter 13 and Juventus 21. But you have to consider that Inter and Juventus have much stronger teams. They concede a lot less shots. They keep the ball much more. So I think relative to the shots that he receives and relative to the amount of possession that other teams have, like playing against him, I think he might be the best keeper in Serie A when you put it in perspective. Obviously, I rate other ones as well. I rate Provedel, I rate Sommer and Chesney and all that. But if we were to get a goalkeeper like that, I would sleep well at night. Traore is good, but yeah, Malarian will never get back to his best. Look, I don't know how that recovery thing works. Lobotka would be good if he played the ball forward and was more offensive. He's got that low center of gravity plus good shooting to put the ball in, but he doesn't even try. Look, Lobotka is something, this is something that I was saying a lot about Lobotka, and I was saying a lot about Jorginho. Not when I had this channel, because Jorginho was before my days of managing this channel, but just with family and friends. These are players that are good at setting the tempo of the game, but don't expect that killer pass. Some people last year or 2 years ago, they were comparing Lobotka with Xavi, for example, right? And they were saying, "Oh, look at all these uh, great games that Lobotka is doing with 100% pass accuracy, 150 touches. That stuff that, Xavi does." No. Xavi had the ability to speed up play and make that ball go vertical. He had that assist. He had that killer last pass. I mean, if I, for example, Google how many assists does Xavi have, 238 assists. How many assists does Lobotka? How many assists? I can't spell assist. Does Lobotka have? Lobotka has 0.04 assists every 90 minutes. Guys, if my math is right, that means that he needs about 13 games to have 1 assist. That means every season, okay, he has about 3 assists on average. Xavi, let's say he played 20 years, which he didn't. Let's say he played 15 years. He was almost averaging 18 assists per season, right? Quick maths. But I mean, these are the levels that were, and this guy did it for 15 years. Lobotka, we're talking about a guy who's been good for 2 or 3. So, he's not that guy that passes the ball forward, unfortunately. What you need then next to Lobotka is someone like Zielinski in his prime that Lobotka can give the ball to him, and then you rely on Zielinski to make that killer final pass. And Lobotka is the guy that basically opens up the play for him, that pre-pass. But we don't have prime Zielinski anymore. Traore is not at the level of prime Zielinski. He's better than current Zielinski, but he's not prime Zielinski. And a lot of people, I think, were too quick to say that, oh, we don't need Gabri Veiga. Especially at the start of the season when Zielinski was actually playing well. They said, oh, we don't need Gabri Veiga. Guys, I think Gabri Veiga could have been a very, very interesting player for us, actually. But I mean, now he might not be doing much in Saudi, but you have to think about his motivation levels playing over there and the amount of quality around him playing over there, as opposed to if he were playing in a team like Napoli. Um, Anthony G says Lobo is the one I would move on the soonest, as I think out of the three has been the worst overall this season. I also think, in theory, like Demme, whenever Demme stepped up to replace him, I was fine with that. I never really missed Lobotka. I always felt that Demme did a job. I'm surprised he's out of both the Champions League and Serie A squad, but good for him, man. I don't know if you guys follow his stories on Instagram. He's chilling now. He's going to take a swim at the beach and all that. Zambo sometimes is simply tired. Kvara played good, but really needs that support. Osimhen so soft inside and actual should get. And then I don't know what he continued to say. Vincenzo Aiello. Look, the thing about Zamba being tired, I think that's relatively true. I mean, he did play AFCON, then came back, literally played pretty much every game. And I think how we've been saving him for the last few, or using him for the last few weeks, maybe we've squeezed a little bit too much out of him, and to some extent, I think the players are saving their energy for that Barcelona game. Let me get to some earlier comments, like some of the first ones, guys, that came into this live, and then we'll get to the analysis. Because I always, you guys always message first, the guys at the very top, and then I never get a chance to read you out. This would have been a perfect game for Traore to start, not versus Juve. I mean, look, I think Traore always needs to start ahead of Zielinski because Zielinski is just not motivated at this point. We cannot keep a clean sheet. It's true. It's true. We're struggling. Politano and Raspa were bad. Absolutely zero impact. Look, Politano actually in the first half set up Kvara twice. So I don't agree with that. Politano set up Kvara in the first half, and then Kvara missed the chance to make it 1-0. And then he had a really good cross for Kvara's header as well in the first half. So I don't agree with that comment about Politano. Raspa didn't do much. I agree. But Politano, I think he had an average game. Vincenzo is saying that Raspa isn't the right winger. It's true, he's not. But in a 4-3-3, it's the only position he can play. He can play on the left, but you've got Kvara on the left. So, look, if he wants minutes with this coach, playing a 4-3-3. That's the only thing that he can do. Adam Miller says, Anthony, the ball bounced very unlucky for us for their goal. It was a nice goal, but it bounced off Anguissa to a bicycle kick to some extent. But we'll go and analyze the marking. Ostigard better than Rachmani, says Georgie. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Ostigard and Kvara were men of the match. I agree. Kvara, I guess, better, but Ostigard hopefully is a perennial starter now. Look, the problem is that he won't be. The problem is that Rachmani will start and Ostigard will go back in the bench because the club would rather play with Juan Jesus, who's left-footed, as the other center back, and they would rather play with Rachmani. I don't know what Rachmani gives to this Napoli team, but I don't know. Maybe he's just. Honestly, I don't know. I can't defend it. I really can't defend it. So I'm not even gonna try. I was gonna try to think of a reason why you would maybe start Rachmani. Look, I can't. I can't defend Rachmani over Ostigard. It just doesn't work for me. Should Rui start versus Barca? Kvara looks a lot better when Rui is out there. I think the fact that he played today means that Oliveira will start because Oliveira will have rested. So yeah, I don't know if Mauro Rui can handle another 90 minutes that way quite soon. He already played against Juventus. Look, I hope he does, but at the same time, you know that when Mauro Rui plays, you've got to then make a substitution. You're constrained into making a substitution in the 70th minute because that's all he has. At the same time, the game against Barcelona could be further than 90. You know, it could go to extra time. And so whether you start or whether you come off the bench, maybe is not so important in that game because either way, you might come off the bench and still play more than 1 hour, you know? You could come on in the 60th minute and play just as much as the guy who started because he plays 60 and then you play the next 60. So the idea of who's starting against Barcelona is, you know, maybe not as important if this goes into extra time. Yeah. Blue Line says Napoli deserved to win today. They've done everything for the win. I mean, yeah, I think some players did. Kvara did, right? But did Zielinski, did Anguissa, did Lobotka, did they take enough risk? Did they do enough? Because the Torino players all did their job. They all did what they had to do, you know? So, yeah. I don't know if we did enough, guys. I swear to God, stop playing Raspadori as a winger. It's pointless. He's got no speed and no dribbling skill. He's a shadow striker. What a waste of talent. Yeah, but you know we talked about why that's the case. Napoli played good, but in the end, the result is what counts. Yeah. Let's go to some of the newer comments. Let's see. Super Alexander Lobotka slows down the team tremendous. I've never seen him making piercing risky pass. Yeah, I think that's one of the key issues there. I think he did it against Sassuolo. There was a clear directive from Calzona to do it, I think. And playing against a team that was objectively quite bad, that had opened up so much after, you know, all those goals that we were scoring against them, I think it really helped them achieve that mission, that goal. But ultimately, you know, when it comes to a game that's 0-0 or something like that, he doesn't have the skill to unlock a defense when it's 0-0 and there's six defenders trying to, you know, park the bus. Right, let's go into the analysis, guys, of the game. Like, why was it so difficult for Napoli, guys? And I think it's because Torino really decided to play man for man, right? I mean, here you can see the pressing that they had. It was someone on Juan Jesus, someone on Anstigard, someone on Mario Ruiz, someone on Anguissa, someone on Lobotka, like, and it forced the entire Napoli team to track back to help these guys out because obviously Napoli want to play the ball on the ground. And if that's the case, then it requires Politano and Kvara and Zielinski to also track back and help these guys out, right? The other option is to just sling the ball over to Osimhen, and we tried to do that a few times, but we had Buongiorno that was marking Osimhen extremely well, right? And again, here, it's not just that one time, it was a second time. And at this point, what Meret has to do is that he has to find either Di Lorenzo, that I've circled up there, who is free, or the ball, move it very quickly to Mario Rui, who does have a bit more space, right? And hope that that Torino player doesn't close in on him. But really, if you're Meret in this position, the only things you can do now is either chip the ball over to Di Lorenzo or play it very fast to Juan Jesus, who then has to play it to Mario Rui, or directly to Mario Rui. So Torino forced us to play it out wide, and it really made it difficult for Lobotka to get into the game, right? And it forced us out wide. It forced Napoli to play super far back. Whenever Politano and Kvara actually did get the ball, they were so far away from the goal that, by the time they reached the box of Torino, everybody's already tracked back and is covering all the spaces. So they made it extremely hard for us. And you can see here, no, like if you do end up playing the ball long to Osimhen, because everybody had to try to give options to the defenders and the midfielders, you've got nobody anymore in support of Osimhen. And this is kind of, I think, a problem because you have Osimhen fighting it out with Buongiorno, who's a very good defender, and then the other two defenders next to him have a chance to double up or triple up on Osimhen, and there's no one that he can really pass to, for a quick layoff. I think if you are to play the ball forward to Osimhen, it doesn't make sense unless you also see that there's someone that is in support of Osimhen, right? Like it has to come together. It's like salt and pepper. You can't really put on the table just one of those. If you're a restaurant, then it's like, dude, where's the pepper, right? You gotta have both. You gotta have Osimhen and someone else. You can't just have Osimhen. So yeah, but the first chance really of the game that we had comes from somewhat of a pressing situation. Look, it's not really a pressing situation, but fine. It's more of a mistake by Torino, but Politano recovers the ball, lays it off to Kvara, and Milinkovic Savic does really well to stay on his feet, make himself big. You can see that he doesn't go to ground easily. He covers the face of the goal extremely well. I actually think that if you want to beat him at this point, I think your only option is to try to fit that ball in between the legs. But that's super tough. That's super tough. And he is, as I said earlier, a very, very good goalkeeper. And then we get to Torino's first chance with Duvan Zapata. Here, Lobotka, intercepts the ball from him. It bounces off Zielinski, who's sleeping, because of course he is. And then Zapata, whips this across, and Meret actually had a very good game, very good save to keep us at 0-0. Very good reaction. We know how hard Zapata hits those shots. Juan Jesus, shows his the fact that he's aging, the fact that he has to bring players down because he knows that once a player is able to turn on him, he's done. He can't recover. So, he brings him down here, and then he has to play the rest of the game with a yellow card. Actually, I think he does really well, not committing any more fouls, still risking and putting himself out there in the second half against a very physical Torino. So fair play. So maybe a bit unfair that I flagged this up as something, you know. But let's move on. I mean, I take these screenshots as I go, so in case it would compromise him later in the game, I can say, I took that screenshot instead of having to go back into the game and find the exact minute. Whatever. You guys get it. There was this moment here. A few of you guys noticed it on Twitter as well, um, where the referee, decided that he has to, you see, this referee, right? Like, I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to be very precise and keep the wall at a specific location, and then the attackers or the other team 1 meter away because that's the new rule so that they don't disturb the wall. Look, I get it, okay? But doesn't this scream the fact that Osato wants to be a bit of a protagonist, like I don't know. I've always got that feeling with Orsato that that he wants to always steal the show some way, and that's a small way to do it, just start drawing on the field. Galbert123 says, we haven't why haven't we given Dendoncker a real chance yet? Simple. I don't think he's that good of a player. He wasn't getting any minutes in Aston Villa. Look, he was a player that was that came in just to make it seem like we were doing something, right? So here's what happened. In January, we were pretty bad, right? Correct? We were pretty bad. So what does De Laurentiis do? He promises the people, I'm gonna give you 6 signings, you know? And you give the people a lot of signings so that it seems like, hey, I'm really trying to fix the problem here, and look at me, I'm intervening, I'm doing all these things. And then, if in 2 months the signing doesn't do anything or isn't good, whatever, that's my problem in 2 months time, um it always screamed like a signing that they didn't really believe in him, because they didn't really give him a chance. It just screamed of a signing like, hey, we need 6 people just because we need to send a message that we're doing something. If we only bring in 2 or 3, it doesn't send a strong message. But if we bring in 6, then maybe people for the next 2 or 3 weeks will settle down. Always felt like this. Foxdrop says it's like Napoli had to give up everything for a Scudetto. But I mean, I, I would rather this, right? I would rather last year, living what I lived last year, and having such a bad season this year, than 2 second places. I mean, without a doubt, man. I mean, I ticked off something in my life that I didn't know if it was gonna happen or not. I thought, hey, I could go the next 60 years and maybe not experience it, but finally tick that box. And man, I mean, if you were to have asked me 2 years ago, would you sign for winning a Scudetto and then going to Serie B the next year? Yes, yes, I would. I probably would sign on that. Um, as opposed to just never winning it, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but you know what they say, it's better to live one day as a lion than forever as a sheep or whatever that quote is, right? But I think yeah. Let's see some more comments. I thought that's what Mazzocchi was. Make it seem like we did something. I think Mazzocchi actually did bring something, and he's one of the biggest losers. Him and Lindstrom are some of the biggest losers of the change to Calzona because they haven't had a chance to really play. But yeah, guys, I mean, if you think about it, with with Calzona, none of the signings, apart from maybe, apart from maybe Traore, are getting any minutes. Nathan is not getting any minutes. Cayuste got some and then he's injured, but I don't think he's in Calzona's mind a starter or anywhere near. I think he's always going to prefer Traore if he can play Traore. Then Donker doesn't get any minutes. Lindstrom doesn't get any minutes. Mazzocchi doesn't get any minutes. Ngonja is injured, so we don't know. But there are like 7, 8 players that Napoli have brought in, and none of them have been able to make an impact on this team since this summer, like a real impact, which is uh, which is a bit of a problem, obviously. Um, and I think that speaks volumes on our sporting director. It seems like maybe Ngonje could be the guy that really brings an impact to this team, but it's not a good ratio. 1-8, it's not very nice. It's not very good. Then we get this chance from Kvara. Guys, I'm gonna get a drink of water. One sec. One sec. All right. Speaking for like an hour, gets me a little thirsty. All right, so yeah, Kvara had this chance again from Politano. Cross. Let's go over this analysis very quickly. Politano, I mean, this is like the symbol, of Politano, like just so weird sometimes his performances, right? Just like this moment where he's pulling a player's shirt, gets injured in the process. I don't know if he was faking that injury just so he wouldn't get a yellow card. I mean, probably that's what I would do. If I, for sure, if I knew that I did a foul that would get someone a yellow, that would get myself a yellow card, I would just pretend like I injured myself, and distract the referee from the fact that I did a yellow card worthy foul. But anyways, this screenshot here just shows the lack of quality, not necessarily of just Anguissa, but just of in general, right? Like the team, because here you've got Anguissa not really pressed, Torino parking the bus, and you've got Di Lorenzo free out wide, and it's in this moment where instead of taking 2 touches, Anguissa tries to play the ball first time to Di Lorenzo, right? And it's not a complicated ball. Di Lorenzo is under no pressure, so he doesn't. So Anguissa doesn't have to do anything too crazy, with the pass. It doesn't have to be millimeter perfect. It doesn't have to be super fast. It just has to be a normal pass. But the moment he tried to speed up the play and play one-touch football, the ball goes out. It's not accurate enough. The pass, and this is what Napoli needs to work on. Is the fact that like you can have all the possession in the world. You can have 85% possession, but what is the point if the one time that you try to play quick, the ball goes out of play? What kind of possession is that? It's sterile. Possession that's good is quick, it has purpose, it has different rhythms. You go slow, then you go fast, then you bring it back slow, then you go fast, because you need to create a sense of that you're in control of the game, a sense of unpredictability for the other team. You can't just be same rhythm, same rhythm, same rhythm, same rhythm. It doesn't work. And yeah, the fact that whenever we tried to speed it up, it failed is a reflection of this game. I think if there's one picture that really emphasizes what went wrong in this game, it's this one. It's this one, guys. Make sure you are smashing that like button, guys, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of you that are watching. Some of you are on full screen. I get it. It's annoying to minimize the screen and press the like button, but like this is like an hour and a bit long analysis on just Napoli. Like try to find this on Sky or BT or whatever, and then come back to me. And those guys, they like I deserve a few likes. Come on, guys. There's no team behind me, by the way. It's just me as I'm watching the game. So, uh, do it because otherwise, if I don't get enough likes, then I'm gonna give up on this. Um, because I'm just gonna assume you guys don't like it if you don't give me likes. Um, so, anyways, yeah, this is the goal with Napoli. I mean, we talked about it in recent weeks. That link up play between Kvara and Mairarui, two technical players, it's it's much better than it is with Oliveira. I mean, Mairarui has the technique to find Kvara. He understands football. I mean, these are players that think about what they're doing. Uh, Oliveira's a good player, right? But Oliveira doesn't think like Mairarui. Oliveira just doesn't have that that football brain that Mairarui has. Oliveira, I don't know if he would have found this pass. Not just because he doesn't have the same technique as Mairarui. I just don't see him thinking two steps ahead like Mairarui does. Maybe I'm being harsh on Oliveira. I think he has other qualities, right? He's got a great gallop. He's got more presence in defense. He's more physical. Fine. But when you need that killer pass, Oliveira is not at the same level as Mairarui. Oliveira is just a better defender, man. They're opposite in very big ways. Yeah. Oliveira, what he also has, as opposed to Mairarui, if you watch closely, Oliveira sometimes gets used in the side inside the box. A lot of the times you see the Kvara on the outside and Oliveira come into the box, even to receive the ball. A lot of the time, it's just a dummy play to remove a defender from Osimhen or from Kvara himself. But sometimes he receives the ball in the box, and that's because Oliveira, compared to Mairarui, has a bit more of the ability to dribble. No, he does have that South American, you know, skill uh, to him. Not a lot, he's not a massive dribbler, but he has that comfortableness with dribbling, which when you're in the box is extremely dangerous because any misstep from the opposition and it's a foul, it's a penalty. Mairo Rui doesn't have that. Mairo Rui doesn't have that kind of presence to be in the box. So Mairo Rui stays out wide and doesn't really penetrate centrally. So yeah. Football is life, man. Thank you so much for the $9.99 donation. Says, what's up, Dom? With the fifth place Champions League spot, what's our chances of making it? Who do you honestly believe should be our coach next year to get us back to football? Please let me know. We have to get back. Look, the math is simple. Take the last, let's say, 15, 20 years, okay? And check how many points you need to be fifth. Take a median or average, whatever it is that you want to do, and check how many points you need, right? From this point on, with 10 games to go, if Napoli wants to be on average compared to the last 20 years fifth, then we need 8 wins out of 10. But this is a team that for the whole season has never done better than 2 wins in a row, which means that statistically speaking, that is impossible for us to achieve this year. Well, no, it's not impossible because the something of the past does not mean that you can't fix it in the future, but it's unlikely that this Napoli team can win 8 out of 10. It just won't happen, guys. And we've got a tough few games coming up as well. I mean, I don't know. Who do you honestly believe should be our coach next year? Well, look, I I think Calzona is good for this moment. Let's see how he does the rest of the season. I would, I think he has a chance to be our coach if he does relatively well, especially if he manages to beat Barcelona. There might be some discussions there. But as I said earlier in this live, I think he has some of the same limitations that Sarri had, which is that he's very unflexible with with his formations, even when it's like a, you know, it's now or never, it's still he will stick to that 4-3-3. He will not try to utilize the whole squad. I don't know if that's something that Laurentiis wants. De Laurentiis wants a coach that utilizes the entire squad. Um, and by the way, I'm not saying we should switch out of the 4-3-3. Like we should stick to the 4-3-3. That's our identity. I'm talking about the last 10 minutes of a game. I think at that point it's fair to switch it up if you see that what you're currently doing isn't working against the team. Who do I see? Look, I don't want to see Pioli, but I feel like that's an option. Um, Look, it's strange, there's so many options. I think until we know whether we are in the Champions League or not, then we won't know. I'm gonna assume that we won't be in the Champions League just from a probability perspective. I think I think Bologna and Roma will get fourth and fifth. So I have a feeling that we might get someone like Palladino, someone like Gilardino, someone young, uh, but definitely not someone that's ready. But yeah, I think after three coaches that are relatively not fresh, not young, I think De Laurentiis might switch and try to win with one of the younger ones, especially seeing how well Motta has done with Bologna and all that stuff. At least that's what I would do if I was him. Um, and just try to start a new cycle with someone like that. I mean, you see a lot of young coaches having some real success recently. Xavi Alonso, Leverkusen, all this. So why not? I think Gilardino is doing an incredible job at Genoa, by the way. I would like to see Gilardino. Honestly, I think it's so underrated what he's doing, and it reminds me of what Thiago Motta was doing with Bologna 2 years ago. Super underrated, but he gradually built up, from ninth to eighth and now fourth. And Gilardino gets a team newly promoted from Serie B, and he's what, 10th, 11th? And I think he's got every chance of finishing in the top 10, which is incredible for a team that's just been promoted. Um, so yeah, I see Gilardino as like as a nice option. The manager who manages in Nice in France, look, that guy. The problem that I have with him is that he is too defensive. I don't think it fits the style of play that Napoli wants to play. Like if you look at Nice, right? And by the way, they've I think they lost today. No, Ace CS Nice. Mhm. Let's see. I need to sneeze. I need to sneeze. Anyways, Nice, right? They've only scored 24 goals, you know? Um, you have the other teams that have done worse than that are in the bottom four of League One. So, his goal difference is +5. You've got PSG at +35, Brest at +17. Like +5. It's just, for reference, we're at +11. Inter, whatever, they're at +56. Juventus are +21. Milan is +19. Bologna +17. Roma +19. Atalanta +19. And this guy is +5 in League One, So I don't know. I feel like he's too defensive. Like he doesn't extract the most out of the attacking players that he has. Um, so yeah. And then he plays three at the back. I don't know. I see a lot of problems with with that coach from Nice. What about Fonseca? He's doing no Fonseca. Look, he's Garcia 2.0. He's Garcia 2.0 because he look, he's doing well in France and all that, but let's face it, he's behind Monaco, he's behind Brest. I mean, being behind Brest, that doesn't look good for anybody. They really don't have a good team. Um, I think if you're a good coach, you should be comfortably above that team. I also think he showed in the Serie A his limitations. It would be a huge mistake. It would be a Garcia 2.0. You would get the same critique as when you got Garcia. So absolutely not. Absolutely no Gasperini. Absolutely no Gasperini. You know who I would like? I would like, speaking of Portuguese managers, um, speaking of Portuguese managers, I think the guy from Porto, right? Conceição, or whatever his name, however you pronounce his name, I think he would be a good shout because he has both a very good defensive setup when needed. He showed that against Arsenal, for example, 2 weeks ago. And if he needs to attack, if the other team that he's playing against is a team that you are much better than, such as Napoli, Torino, Napoli, Genoa, Napoli, Cagliari, he will attack that team. He will score 2 or 3 goals against that team. He does not settle for 1-0 against those teams. He might settle for 1-0 if he plays against Arsenal. He plays defensive. He understands when someone's better than his team and he knows how to set that team up defensively. But when he plays a weaker team, Porto know how to attack. And he's won the title already with Porto. I feel like especially if he manages to beat Arsenal, no? And he gets them to the quarterfinals, I feel like he's like mission accomplished there, right? Like he's taken that team as far as they can go. So he'd be looking for a new challenge. And in my opinion, he would be the best manager for Napoli. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah, De Zerbi, look guys, De Zerbi, the problem with De Zerbi that I have with De Zerbi, is that he is a coach that is a is a coach that I think has still a lot of limitations in the fact that there have been some games that he has been absolutely destroyed on. Because for example, Aston Villa 5-0 against Brighton, Roma 4-0 against Brighton. Like some games he has lost badly. When you lose 5-0, that means that you don't have a plan B. You don't know what it means to play something else, how to adapt to your opposition. He has this scheme where he plays the ball uh, like an S shape through the middle. And if you can find a way with your players to block that, you won the game. You know, he's like a one trick pony. He's the Arjen Robben of coaches. Everybody knows what he's going to do, but he will still do it well and score. But if you find that one defender, that one thing that actually, knows how to block you, then you don't have any other option. You're like the Arjen Robin of coaches, you know? So yeah, he's limited still. I think he needs to improve, but I see a good future for him, honestly. I really do. I really do. But yeah, but yeah. Let's go further into this analysis. I mean, yeah, here's the goal. Here's the goal that we conceded, right? So look at that, guys. I mean, this cross comes in and there's a lot of confusion as to what really happened in there. But just some things to note. The guy that did the bicycle kick, he was unmarked. I mean, obviously you don't go and mark every single player in the box because you just don't, you mark a bit zonally, a bit by man, and then you try to adapt to the situation. But no one really picks him up. I mean, the point about marking zonally, right, is that yeah, you start in a zone, but when there is a flick, which happened after the first touch, I can't remember who exactly came off of, but in theory, when you mark zonally and then there's a touch, you break the zone, right? And you have to adapt to the ball, not coming from the corner anymore, and it's like a mini transition, and we failed to do that. Another thing that we should point is Mario Rui marking Zapata. I mean that I don't know who decided that was a good idea, but this is like Mike Tyson fighting me, guys. I mean, no chance. No chance. Absolutely no chance this was going to end well for Napoli. So that's something that we need to study. And it surprises me because we've shown with the whole penalty thing against Juve that we look at all the details and study all the different set pieces. And then, the next week we put Mairurui in front of Zapata, which is strange. And yeah, then this guy scores the goal of his life because obviously, when you play against Napoli, everybody scores the goal of their lives, whether it's him or Valverde for Real Madrid or whatever. Everybody does, no? Every player who's ever scored against Napoli, whatever their career is, whether they have one goal or 200 goals, if they were to pick a top five, that one against Napoli is going to be there. I feel like it's always like this. Everybody just scores amazing goals against us. Or it's like, if it's not an amazing goal, it's like, oh, it's his first goal since 1972, or his first goal since arriving on planet Earth and playing in the Serie A, like it's always a first of something crazy. So yeah, that's always happening against us. And then after that, it was us trying to beat Milinkovic Savic in goal with Osimhen, with Kvara. But ultimately, it was tough for us because he was a good goalkeeper, and Torino were wasting a lot of time playing anti-football and all that. Finally, guys, player, we're 1 hour and 30 into this live. So apologies for that, that it's super late. Maybe even more, huh? We might be even more than 1 hour and 30 into this. Um, yeah, super long live. Sorry, guys. So this is the player ratings. Midfield, very bad. I think they didn't show enough personality. They didn't attack enough. All that. Zielinski especially. But what do you expect from Zielinski nowadays? I mean, zero motivation on his part, in my opinion. I thought the defense did pretty well. Maruri with the assist. Juan Jesus and Ostigard did well against a difficult client in Zapata. I think they won every duel. Meret made a really good save when it was still 0-0. Di Lorenzo, we criticized him. He played so-so. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that in the end, defensively, he didn't do any mistakes, so fine, he passes. Because first and foremost, he is a defender. Um, Osimhen, harsh maybe to give him a 6, but he did ghost a little bit as not ghost. That's wrong. He was fighting. Sorry, I don't. I said ghost because I see the ghost in front of the screen. Um, Osimhen struggled against Buongiorno. It was not easy. Buongiorno is a very good defender. We spoke about it at the start, and yeah, I think he failed to adapt. Really, I think what he could have done, which would have confused maybe Torino, was why not step back? Why not go back into the midfield and do what, for example, Harry Kane does, where to lose his marker, sometimes he comes back, plays deeper, even if he doesn't need to. I'm not telling that he needs to be a number 10, but just move out of position, you know? Maybe go on the wing for a little bit, and then right before that ball is supposed to be whipped into the box, then you make a run into the box, and that's hard to pick up, you know. And you try to find a little bit of space that way, like Harry Kane. So there are aspects to Osimhen's game that he still needs to improve, because to some extent he is still very one-dimensional. And I think when you compare him to someone like Kane, I would put Kane above Osimhen, right? And I think it's a fair comparison because I mean this is the kind of money that he's apparently worth. So I'm gonna compare him to someone like that. Um, and yeah, I'm not gonna say Kane is a better finisher or whatever. I mean, Osimhen, for example, way better with his head and all that. But Osimhen can be just very one-dimensional, like just that number 9. And sometimes I think as a number 9, you need to get creative. When you've got a defender like Buongiorno, that is, you're seeing that he's able to control you, get creative. Go on the side. Come back a little bit. Do something. Try it. Try it once or twice. And if it doesn't work, continue to be a number 9. But do something to change it up. Um, with obviously then the intention to still enter the box when that final ball is being played, because that's where you need to be when it's that time, the critical time. But if you're there from the start, it's easy to mark you. And Kvara showed his class today with all his efforts. Unfortunately, I feel like he could have done better in the first half. I think if I were to just give Kvara a grade for the first half, it would be a 6, maybe even less. But he did so well in the second half that it has to go up to an 8, you know? Are we getting a movie from last season? Apparently, yes. Buongiorno to Napoli, hopefully. Yeah, Buongiorno pocketed Osimhen. Buongiorno has suitors from top clubs. No way Napoli can steal him. The thing is that, look, it's like, what does this kid want from his career? First of all, does he want to stay in Italy or not? Because I think staying in Italy for a central defender is super important, especially if you want to play for the national team. It gives you a lot more visibility for Spalletti, um, just the style of play, all that kind of stuff, right? And being in Italy, it's the toughest league for a defender, right? Then it's okay, I'm young. I want to play in the national team. There's a World Cup coming in 2 years. Which team can guarantee minutes? Which team will guarantee that I will play every single match as I'm doing now at Torino? If you go to Chelsea, if you go to, maybe Chelsea's a bad example, but if you go to Real Madrid, if you go to Juventus, if you go to Inter, if you go to these clubs cannot guarantee you a starting 11. The other day in the Champions League, Kim Min Jae was on the bench. I know he was coming back from injury, but still, he was on the bench. Something that he wouldn't be on the bench with Napoli, even if he had a broken leg, he would be playing, right? So if you are Buongiorno and you're thinking, where's a club that I can play in that will give me time and visibility for the national team, well then maybe Napoli is the place for you, right? It is a step up. They do have the potential to go back in the Champions League. You will play every single minute because our center back pairing is a bit embarrassing. So, I mean, if I was him, regardless of me being a Napoli fan or not, I would do it. I would do it, honestly. Right, let's very quickly go into the conference of Mr. Calzona, who, by the way, cannot speak to DAZN because Napoli doesn't want to speak to DAZN because of the fact that they are scheduling games in times that Napoli does not like, um, which means that they don't get as much rest as they wanted, and um, scheduling games in certain times of the week as opposed to others also affect how many spectators you get on television. And if those numbers, if you put someone like at a stupid day, like that nobody will watch you on that day because it's like a family holiday kind of day or whatever, like then you get less people that watch you, sponsors are not happy, it affects, there's a lot of reasons why De Laurenti is not happy with that zone. Anyways, I'm not going to go into that, but let's see what Calzona says. Calzona says they asked him why not Simeone when it was 1-1, and he says because with Osimhen they are two players that after that we would have had to thrust the ball into the box, but this team does not have the characteristics to play that way. I don't want to, you know, uh, launch balls into the area for nothing. Apart from this, I'm very happy with the team. They played with quality for the entire match. Um, we've always conceded a goal ever since I've been here, and it's a thing that I don't like. It's too little time for me to cure all these little details. I have to think about the priorities, but we're trying to fix these aspects. Sometimes it's also a little bit of bad luck, like it was today, but we're on the right path. The players are a little bit let down because we created a lot today. In the dressing room, I told the boys that we're on the right path, that with this attitude, we will win games. I'm happy for the game that Zielinski played. I'm happy to have refound him. Well, if he's happy, then great. Lindstrom, can he play in the midfield? They ask him. He says he might. He maybe has those characteristics. In an emergency, it can be an option. Right now, however, changing formation will create some confusion. You can do it in the final minutes to try something different, but not in other times of the game. The team right now needs certain stability, and we can't mix things up too much just because something's not working. But yeah, Osimhen after the game against Juve's, uh, yeah, maybe he was a bit, tired. He's played 4 games in 10 days, so yeah, it's normal that a player who has been in AFCON for 1 month after that has a bit of a decrease in his performance, but I'm satisfied with him. He does what I ask him to do, and he's trying very hard. It's very important for us. Um, Regarding Barcelona, we will prepare that game like we do with every other. We are a strong team. We have to go there and play our game. We know that we will find a strong team against us, but we have confidence in our system. Kvara is a special player. He's playing very well. I'm happy with Mairurui as well. He was one of the best. But unfortunately, in the second half, out of the 52 minutes on the clock, we were only able to play 24 because of how many uh, different stops there were from the Torino players. We started this path, and we don't have a lot of time to train together, but we made some huge steps forward. Right now, I'm happy with what we've done. The players need a lot of praise for the availability that they showed to me, and yeah, we just need to fix some things defensively, some details, um, and yeah. Um, so that's Calzona, and then let's see. I think Mairurui also gave a bit of an interview. He said, "We are back on the right track, creating a lot of chances. There's obviously a lot of frustration that we didn't win the game, but let's try to use this frustration positively against Barcelona. With Kvara, we are a good partnership. We're trying all of us to reach the levels of last year, and that also is a bit of a mental thing that we have to overcome. But we are a bit more free now, and we are showing it. But yeah, he says, let's hope we don't mess up more. So guys, that is the situation. Calzona is saying that he's happy with the not the result, but with the way we played. I don't know. I think we could have done more, especially considering that we could have been a bit more risky. Our midfielders could have tried harder. But yeah, that's it, guys. I think I'm gonna end it here. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I mean, if we get a win against Barcelona, then I think we'll very easily forget about this game, guys. And otherwise, if we don't win against Barcelona, then this is a tough, tough end to the season. Anyways, guys, I am super tired. I don't know if you can see it from my eyes. Super tired. So we will end it here. Have a good one. And as always, Forza Napoli, sempre. Ciao.